Somewhere along your awakening, something cracked. Maybe it came after a deep spiritual insight. Maybe it came after a breakdown. Either way, you saw it, the illusion, the patterns, the noise, and then the silence. At first, it felt powerful, liberating. You thought, this is it, I've arrived. But then, slowly, like fog rolling in at dusk, something else took over. Not despair, not sadness, just stillness. Your soul turned down the volume on life, and forgot to turn it back up. You stopped chasing. You stopped caring. Not in a reckless way, but in that quiet existential sigh kind of way. And then came the whisper. Why do I feel so numb, now that I finally see the truth? Here's the paradox no one talks about. Spiritual awakening doesn't always ignite your passion. Sometimes, it extinguishes it. Especially for the deeply introspective ones. The seekers. The empaths. The ones who feel too much, see too much, and crave something real. Awakening doesn't just shift your perspective. It collapses your old identity. The masks you wore. The roles you played. The things you used to chase, validation, goals, approval, they lose their gravity. Carl Jung called this moment not a failure, but a rite of passage. He warned, enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light, but making the darkness conscious. And that's what's happening. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not depressed. You're standing in the sacred in-between, the cocoon, the goo before the butterfly. This is the void before the rebirth. This is the place where the ego dies, and the self begins to stir. It's not glamorous. It doesn't get thousands of likes. It's not all Bali retreats and quote cards. It's the silence behind your eyes when everything you once cared about suddenly feels hollow. And that silence is sacred. Jung called this the process of individuation, where the fragmented self becomes whole. But first, it must dissolve. The fuel that once drove you, the proving, the striving, no longer works, because you've outgrown it. And now, your soul is building something new. From the inside out. Not driven by fear or pressure or the old playlist of hustle, but by resonance, truth, alignment, by a quieter, deeper yes. This isn't the end of your awakening. This is the beginning of your becoming. So if you felt numb, stuck, adrift, know this. You're not falling behind. You're not losing your spark. You're being relit from a deeper flame. A flame that doesn't flicker when the world howls. A flame that's yours, and yours alone. And that's why fractal wisdom exists. To speak to this space, the invisible, uncomfortable, profoundly sacred space between who you were and who you're becoming. To remind you, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're becoming whole. If this resonated, if it gave language to something you've been quietly carrying, subscribe. Journey with us. Here, we don't bypass the dark. We walk through it and find the gold. Because awakening isn't the end of the story. It's where the real story begins.